All right, well, welcome those of you who have joined us to Putting a Halt on Human Trafficking. I'm Dr. Jeff Peterson, the faculty advisor for Chi Sigma Iota. We're very grateful today to have Scott Munson from the Haven House, who will be presenting on this two-part series in March. The second one is on March 22nd, or 26th, excuse me, from 11 to noon as well, on a separate Zoom link. Which is there, and that's going to be addressing the risk of dating violence. So please get the word out for that. We just wanted to remind folks that Chi Sigma Iota, this is our membership drive month for those who meet the criteria, have been sent applications to join the Chi Sigma Iota Counseling Honor Society. But we'll have a meet and greet on March 23rd through the 25th for those that want to stop by and just learn more about the organization in Brandenburg, room 208 from 3 to 4 p.m. I wanted to first introduce the Chi Sigma Iota leadership team. Dr. Allison Bond is our department chair. Dr. Bond, welcome.
Hi, everybody. Glad to be here.
We appreciate her continued support in the department. And Dr. Dustin Reed, who's my co-advisor for the chapter. Dr. Reed.
Hi, everybody. Welcome.
And of course, the star of our chapter, Ashley Swanson, who is our CSI chapter president of Chi Sigma Lambda, which is the name of our Wayne State College chapter for Chi Sigma Iota. Ashley.
Hi, everyone.
Awesome. Again, Chi Sigma Iota is a counseling, academic, and professional honor society. We do outreach and community service projects as part of our service to the campus and to the community. And for anybody that wants more information, you can go to the website, which is CSI-net, CSI, is it -org.net? If you just search Chi Sigma Iota, it comes up. It's kind of a strange web address. I also want to thank Haven House, our sponsor, for Family Services Center. They do support services for survivors of domestic and sexual violence. They do community programming like this, and they have a 24/7 crisis line, which is listed there. You can also find them on the web at havenhousefsc.com. All right, well, without further ado, let's introduce our guest, Scott Munson. Scott, take it away.
All right, thank you so much for having me. We really appreciate this. You know, the work we do at Haven House is very rewarding. It is very challenging sometimes, but very thankful to just have the opportunity to share some information with you. I think a lot of us probably know what human trafficking is, but we definitely want to, you know, define that today and just basically see what we can do as a community to, you know, put the stop on this horrific crime. It's, you know, a lot of people think it's like a worldwide thing, which it is, but, you know, it's definitely happening right in our country and right in our state of Nebraska too. It's happening. So that's why it's important to understand what we can do as people to help these, you know, precious souls. So, yes, what are we going to talk about today? We're going to define what human trafficking is. Maybe identify some warning signs, look at the populations that are at risk, and just try to educate what we can do as people to help these folks that end up in this you know, like I said, a horrific crime. It's hard to imagine how somebody would actually do this to another human being, but unfortunately it is happening, and that's why it's important to talk about it. So I got a few definitions here, but you know, I can probably read this to you, which would be, you know, pretty boring, but I think we'll just touch on some of the main points. But it's really the purpose of, you know, buying another person, selling them into slavery from either like you know, forced labor or for sexual means. And you know, this can include, you know, being forced to marry. You know, I'm actually an organ donor, so when I do pass away, you know, I'm glad to be an organ donor. But some of these precious souls are actually bought and they're killed because they, take their organs or tissues out, so just thinking about that, being forced to marry, it's just something that we really need to be aware of. A lot of people are probably thinking, does this happen mainly overseas? But it is a huge international business. The drug trade, the arms trade, and then the human trafficking trade. Those are the three big international businesses, and we'll talk about some statistics as we go through the presentation here. So labor and sex trafficking, that's what we want to touch on here. Labor trafficking is, again, buying that person for labor or services. They use threats, they use force, they trick these folks. And sex trafficking would be the recruitment and transportation and obtaining this person for commercial sex acts. Okay, using the same type of broad force, being threatened, or they threaten their family members, they threaten to maybe deport them, all kinds of things like this to get them into this. So there's some recruiting involved, there's some physical force involved. Again, the coercion, there's a lot of threatening, confiscating some of their valuables or their documents, a lot of manipulation being taking place. And the thing that I think that hopefully we're going to learn today is that the recruitment part, the thing that is really scary about this is they're so smooth in how they recruit these young people or these adults. It's not like you think where somebody just pulls up and they kidnap somebody. It's more of getting to know them, and it's a system. And a lot of these traffickers are very, very well connected, and they're very smooth in how they operate their business. This is just a slide where we haven't had slavery, my Lord, since 1800s. So and I believe it's Matthew chapter 7, around verse number 12. It's the golden rule. We want to treat people how we want to be treated, and hopefully that's what we're gonna continue to do as a people, as a nation. But unfortunately, there are some folks out there that don't see it that way. But we can definitely do our part. So here's some statistics that might be interested, you might be interested in. There's, depending on the research that you do, there's somewhere between 35 to 40 million victims of human trafficking worldwide. 10 million of these are children. Those are just mind-boggling numbers when you think about it. It's a huge multi-billion-dollar business with 150 billion in profits each year. And we'll talk about this again in another slide down the road. But when you think about Nike, when you think about Starbucks, when you think about Google, those are some massive companies that generate a lot of income, billions and billions of dollars. And unfortunately, human trafficking, when you combine those three, it generates more than those three combined, which is really sad. Next slide we'll look at is the hotline. Okay, and this is something that we can do. We can call this hotline, and we can make a report. And we'll talk about that some more when we get towards the end of the presentation here. So this is some good news. This is some things that we can do as a people to help these folks. So there's thousands of cases of human trafficking that are reported to this hotline every day, every year. And so it's definitely going on. And and we might be thinking, well, we live in small town South Dakota, or we live in small town Iowa, or we live in small town Nebraska. It's not really going on, but it actually is. And I got some specific statistics on some of the states too that we'll talk about here shortly. what are some risk factors? Okay, when you think about our children, you know, they're probably under a lot more pressure nowadays than they were back in the, you know, when kids were growing up in the 60s and 70s. It's just kind of how things are. You know, society has changed. There's a lot more technology. There's just a lot more things to tap into. But here's some risk factors. A lot of times teenagers, they're misunderstood. You know, they want some independence. They might be arguing with their parents. There's all kinds of things. They might be looking for attention, right? So, you know, that's why we got to be, you know, aware of our surroundings, looking at, you know, what's going on with our young people nowadays. Not only our own children and our families, but just young people as a whole. Just make sure that we care about what's going on with with young people. And you know, when we're out and about and we're at the store, grocery store, or we could be at the pharmacy, or we could be at the doctor's office. Again, just be aware of our surroundings and what's going on with the young people out there and people in general. Now, what do traffickers do? Okay, what do? They offer all kinds of promises. Okay, this is how they lure them in. You know, hey, you got better opportunities if you you know, come with our family. You know, if you become friends with our family, you know, there's a lot more things that we can promise you. You know, all kinds of material things. They're very charismatic. They're very charming. They make it look pretty good for women and children. That hey, this is a lot better situation if you just give our friends, give our family a chance. So this is how they lure folks in. And one statistic I forgot to mention, and I'm just going to mention it real quick because I want to make sure, is that 71% of human trafficking victims, this is worldwide, are women and girls. 71%. Okay, the other 29% are men and boys. Well, a lot of this is happening to women and girls, unfortunately. I just want to make sure you understood that. Okay. So where do you know, traffickers recruit and try to find some of their victims? Okay, obviously our schools. You wouldn't think courtrooms, but they do. Okay, these are folks that are very, very smooth. They're very, very skilled, and they can be very respected folks in our communities. Some of these traffickers, you would never think they would engage in something like this, but again, it's a multi-billion-dollar business, and that's why we have to be aware of our surroundings and just, you know, watch things very closely. Obviously, the foster care system is a big draw. Group homes, homeless shelters, parks, playgrounds, restaurants, all kinds of places where they can recruit their victims. Now, one thing I forgot to mention on our statistics as well before we move on here is the states that have the highest human trafficking cases. Okay, number 1 is California, number 2 is Texas, number 3 is Florida, number 4 is New York, and number 5 is Ohio. Okay, now Nebraska is number 32 in the nation. We had 62 cases reported, I believe, in 2019. So it is happening in our state, and you know, that's why it's important to talk about this. Now, online. Okay, online. Now, this is a big draw for our young people. It's a big draw for adults. An average day for an adult on social media, folks might spend 2 hours, 2.5 hours every day. Okay, young people, they may spend 6 to 7 hours just on their phones. Okay, a lot of teenagers have phones nowadays that are hooked into the internet, so they might spend every day 6 to 7 hours on their phone, and this doesn't count their homework. Okay, so this is how they're luring a lot of these young people, a lot of women and children, and of course there is some men and boys that are lured into this as well, as through the internet, because we're spending a lot of time on the internet. Okay, so it's important to really educate our kids and to to communicate with them. Again, there's going to be some challenges in our lives and in relationships and with families and with young people, and we just got to continue to show them that we care and that we are willing to, hear what they're saying. Some risk factors for adults. Okay, here could be a single mom. Here could be somebody that has a substance abuse, problem, where they really want to get clean, but then some of these traffickers are luring them in, using those means as well. Here's some people that are just maybe a little insecure, maybe a little lonely, looking for some protection. They might be on the run from some situations that are just not healthy in their relationships, might be running from an abusive situation. Just a lot of times just lack of knowledge, and so here's how these traffickers prey on these precious souls and lure them in through those means. Next slide. Here's some red flags that we could look at as far as our young people go. Some of our kids that are in, elementary and middle school and high school, right? If a young kid has a lot of street smarts, we call it, that might be a red flag. How do they know so much about the streets out there? What if they've had a lot of truancy at school? What if they've been, running away from home? What if they look like they, say they're 12, but they look like they're 18? Something like that could be a risk factor that we could notice. Other red flags, here's a fake ID, right? They're in a relationship with somebody that's much older than them. Here's where when we're out and about at the store or at, like I said, at the pharmacy, or I'm trying to think where, we haven't been able to go to sporting events for so long, but that's another place, once things open up again, sporting events, there's usually a lot of people there. We can be, looking for some of these risk factors or red flags, but here it doesn't appear they're able to make decisions without that significant other, or it doesn't seem like they have the freedom to, it seems like they're being controlled, right? What are some impacts on the victims? Okay. Here it's obviously very, very hard on them that they go through this horrific crime, and their lives are being controlled, and it's just I couldn't imagine what they have gone through, but they definitely don't feel like they're worth anything. They don't feel like they have much hope. They've been lied to. They've been, manipulated. So they pick up some of these behaviors themselves. The maladaptive coping mechanisms, that might be just, screaming and yelling, just to deal with what they're going through. It's very difficult to even imagine, what these precious souls are going through. Next slide. Okay, here's some more statistics. All right, this is talking about all the thousands of victims each year that are, and this is just the sex trafficking and labor trafficking in the United States. Again, thousands and thousands of these victims happening, and that's why it's important for us to be aware of this. What can we do? We can definitely do our part. Next slide talks about the runaways. A lot of these children that are running away are being reported missing, and are likely involved in this trafficking business. Approximately 10% of our shelter youths and 28% of the street youths have reported participating in survival sex. And again, this is just so they can survive. And it's probably not something they want to do, but it's the only means that they feel like they can do to stay alive. Okay. So this is just again, another reason that we need to stop this horrific crime. Some more statistics here. The cost of why, this is the average cost of a victim worldwide that people purchase. And this $150 billion business, again, when you think of Nike, when you think of Google, and when you think of Starbucks, those are some significant companies. I think Google makes at least 46 billion every year. Starbucks has got to be close to 30 billion, and as well as Nike. So the human trafficking, it's more than those three combined, which is just mind-boggling, and that's why it's such a significant problem, not only in our country but worldwide. So what can we do about it? That's the thing. A lot of people want to talk about, well, this is happening, so what can we do? And that's to just talk to people about it and educate ourselves, and to know how to report it, and to get folks some help if we recognize it. Okay, so it's not necessarily smuggling. It may not require the transporting of victims. It doesn't always rely on physical force, and it's not just an overseas issue. It's happening right here in our state of Nebraska and right here in our country. Okay, they're not just adults, males, or strangers. Again, these traffickers are very, very skilled, and they can be people that we might be friends with. They can be upstanding citizens in our community that we might not realize. So it's just something to be aware of. Okay. So what do they do to lure victims in? And again, we talked about this briefly, but again, the internet, social media is a big, big lure out there. Kids are spending a lot of time online, as well as adults. And so that's something we have to be aware of. Again, they promise them all kinds of things. Hey, if things don't seem to be going well for you, so if you hang out with our family, if you hang out with some of our friends, we can get you. If you want to go to college, we can get you all the medical care you need. We can promise you this. We can promise you that. We can rescue you from whatever you're going through. They give them all kinds of promises and lure them in that way. And sometimes these folks have gone through maybe a tough time in their life, and they want to give somebody a chance like this, and they don't realize what they're getting into. Some other different methods. This is more of the coercion method, where it doesn't necessarily mean it's by physical force, but they're withholding some information that's very precious to the victim. They're threatening their family. They might be threatening to deport them. All kinds of things that they're using to manipulate them into participating in the trafficking. Next slide. Now, here's what we can do when we get busy in our lives, but we can definitely notice if somebody is struggling. We obviously care about people. So if we care about people, we're going to notice, hey, this person looks like they're really having a tough time. And that's what we need to be looking for. Okay. Do they seem like they, don't have the free will to make their own decisions? Do they look like they're really, really stressed and in a threatening situation? Okay. Victims of trafficking are not always physically constrained, and they're not always hidden. They might be right out in plain sight. And that's why we got to be aware of our surroundings and do what we can to help. Now, a lot of people will say, well, geez, I don't want to get involved, because if I get involved, something could happen to my family. Hey, I understand that. And, the thing that I would do is, if I would notice something was not right, the first thing I would do is to make sure that I can be in a place where I can be safe to report something. Okay. And once I'm in a safe place where I can report the information, I want to take some good notes, what the people look like, what kind of car they're driving, maybe some license plate information. And then once I can report it and I'm in a safe place that no one's listening, and then try to help out, the people, because that's what we're about, is helping people. Now here's some health indicators. This is specifically labor trafficking. Okay, so you'll notice some malnutrition, maybe some poor hygiene, maybe some injuries. The last one there, somatization. I think you had a definition on that. Yes, this is they go through so much psychological trauma that it's like a conversion of a mental state into physical symptoms. A lot of people think it's just anxiety and depression, but it's because they've been through so much and they're grieving so much that it causes severe fatigue, joint pain, temporary loss of vision. And again, this is just because of all the trauma that they've been through. Okay, some of the behavioral things you might notice: anxiety, like we were talking about, paranoid, conflicting stories, very irritable, things like that. We'll notice, okay, this something's going on here more than the pressure level's not feeling good. Here's some health indicators about some adult sex trafficking. Okay, now our professionals will definitely notice this probably more than us, because if they get some medical care, they'll notice that there's a lot of STIs going on here, a lot of sexual partners, which isn't normal. There might be some suspicious tattoos, signs of physical trauma, and this is where the medical profession is very important to make sure that they're willing to report this, which I believe a lot of them will. Some behavioral things that they may see. Again, the anxiety, the depression. They're at the emergency room quite frequently. A lot of conflicting stories. Some of their things that they're telling us are not lining up. Okay. Next one would be some health indicators on child sex trafficking. Okay. And again, this is where it's just not normal, right? Here's a young lady that's very young, and again, the medical profession is going to be very, very important, that they continue to do their job really well and help out these kids. Again, there's going to be evidence of this, and the behavioral side, there might be some running away, there might be some truancy from school, maybe the way they're acting, the way they're dressing is just not normal. They're very maybe irritable and angry, a lot of mood swings. And the physical part, obviously the parents and or not necessarily the parents, but the medical profession is going to recognize that. So again, what we want to do as a society, as a people, is to recognize this and to try to make sure that we report anything suspicious, right? So if we notice that some precious souls are being treated as like property, where they have maybe some tattoos, and just the way they're being treated, that they don't have any type of say in a situation where they don't make eye contact, they just seem like they're they just don't have any freedom. That's something that we can notice if we see this. So some of the other impacts that we were talking about, I was talking about the sodomization. This kind of goes into that as well. A lot of us know what PTSD is. Okay, so this is something that happens when a trafficker goes through what they go through. They're going to lose their memory. Okay. Um, they're going to, and here's where it gets confusing for us, because you would think when somebody's going through this horrific experience, they want to get the heck out of there, but they might develop some bonding with the trafficker. They might be afraid to say anything. They might be afraid to testify against them because of what they might think could happen to them or their family. Okay, so this is some impacts on the trauma that we just have to be willing to work with the precious souls, and just to be there for them, to listen to them, to be empathetic with them, not necessarily say anything bad about the trafficker, but to be there for them, and to really validate what they're saying. So be aware, be alert of what the where the individuals are at. Traffickers keep a pretty close watch on them, so it's not like they're going to just let them have a lot of freedom. But is there a danger of you getting involved? If there is, then again, that's where you got to protect yourself, and take some good notes, descriptions of vehicles, license plate numbers, all those types of things that you can do discreetly, hopefully. And then that way you can call the law enforcement, and you can call the hotline. Because if you notice that something is off, I would rather make a report and have law enforcement check up on it than to not do anything. I would rather err on the side of caution. And if I'm concerned about some people, I would rather report something and have it checked out than to not do anything. That's just me personally. But so again, you got to protect yourself. So you got to stay alert. Like I was saying before, if there's a risk of you getting in trouble, or worried about what could happen to you or your family, make sure you're in a safe place where no one is listening, and then contact law enforcement, then contact the hotline. There's also a text number there, 233-733, to make a report. Again, details. Where is the individual right now? If you're not able to tell them where they're at, again, you can give a description of what you witnessed, if they need medical attention, if they look like they're really struggling. Again, details of what kind of vehicle they're in, who they're with, descriptions of the individuals, everything that you can give them. Okay. If you're listening to a conversation, maybe some things that were said as well. What are some things that the victims might need? Not only would they contact our agency, maybe for some emergency shelter, for medical attention, things like that, but they might need some of these other things as well. They might need emergency care right away. They might need some legal aid. They might need all kinds of counseling. So that's what we do as an agency at Haven House, is we try to make sure that all the victims that we have the opportunity to work with, that we get them all the help that they need. But a lot of times human trafficking victims need a lot more care than just emergency shelters. So again, if you have the opportunity to listen to somebody, and you feel like there's a real problem here, again, use empathy, really be a good listener. Be careful the words you use. You want to encourage them to help themselves, but again, sometimes they're in a state of mind where they really don't know what to do, and they're obviously afraid to maybe make a report, and that's where we can be supportive, and to try to be there and encourage them to get some help. Okay. So again, the hotline. Okay. All these calls that we make are confidential. All right. If the only time it's not confidential is if the caller threatens to harm themselves or somebody else, if there's imminent danger, any type of life-threatening situation. All right. Medical providers, obviously they're very important in this process. And that's what we can do on our part too, is we can have this number at our in our phone, so if we see something suspicious, we can call this number right away. Okay, that's something that we can do, and to help put a stop to this horrific crime. These are some more statistics, and it just hopefully gives us a sense of urgency that we want to get involved and do our part. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of kids that are missing daily, that are just, and it's just a sad, state of affairs where this is happening not only in other countries, but in the United States. And we definitely want to do our part to put a stop to it. All right. Again, thank you so much for allowing me to spend some time with you and to present this information to you. Again, I thank you for letting the folks know who we are. Haven House, we're in Wayne, Nebraska, and we're also in South Sioux City, Nebraska. We have emergency shelters, and I think we put a slide up there on some of the things we do. We have a 24-hour crisis line, and we provide all kinds of things for support groups and protection order assistance and things like that. But does anybody have any questions about anything as far as the statistics go, or anything about human trafficking in general, or about Haven House in general? Or
This is fantastic, Scott. Thank you so much. Yeah, let's open it up to a couple of questions. I know Dr. Bond and Dr. Reed might have a couple of questions that they can share from participants. Either one of you have something you want to share?
Just ask Scott again. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this with us today. I know that because we're recording this, so many people will probably be watching this later, so you might get some follow-ups from some emails from us. But I really wanted to just ask, kind of, how do you and your staff maintain your own self-care processes in working with these types of topics?
That's a very good question, because yes, we really do get. There's times where you really are overwhelmed. So yeah, we definitely have to take some time for ourselves. And the biggest help for me personally is I have the opportunity to go to church. So man, I tell you what, every time I'm able to go to church and just let the good Lord work on me, and just be thankful for the opportunity, that really, really helps me personally. But sometimes some of the ladies, they just, they like to just take a weekend when they're not on call, and just and spend some time with their family and their friends, and just kind of get away for a while. And my wife and I like to do that as well. But yes, that's a very good question, that we definitely need to take care of ourselves so that we can recharge our batteries and be ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, just like you were saying, so often this can be something that kind of becomes all encompassing in how you view the world, even sometimes. And so even that idea of just needing to turn the brain off a little bit, it sounds like is pretty intentional and important as you go through that.
Yes.
Well, thank you.
Scott, one question we had was, is in terms of the trafficking that's occurring in our region, in Nebraska, South Dakota, and Iowa, are there particular trends or traits to look out for kind of here in this region that to help identify potential victims?
I think in Nebraska, I think the majority of the cases are reported in the Grand Island and Lincoln areas, and probably I should say Omaha too. So maybe I think Omaha and Lincoln are larger cities, right? If I'm not mistaken. And then Lincoln, of course, is the capital. And then Grand Island, I don't know if it's necessarily a larger city. Please forgive me, because I'm from South Dakota, but would it be, is there a lot of traffic coming in and out of there, like truckers, and a lot of, people, a lot of transportation through there? Is that
That would make
trains?
sense. It's definitely on the interstate corridor there, and it's kind of
Okay.
a border city. So yeah, that would make sense.
So I would think those are the reasons that those three cities are highlighted, is for some of those reasons, just to be kind of looking out what's going on, and just being aware of our surroundings, and noticing if things are off for people, if you can just notice they're in a lot of pain and things just doesn't look normal. It's just good to notice that and do our part.
In terms of legislative resources, do you know of anything that the states do on their level to help bring resources to the victims that are survivors of these situations? Outside of such as like Haven House or any other things that you...
Yes, good question, because I know that the legislation is really trying to work with the Nebraska coalition, that Haven House and other agencies are it's like a statewide coalition. And I know we're trying to really work on not only getting emergency shelters, but then some transitional housing, where they have an opportunity to find a job, to not have to worry about paying their rent for a couple of years, so we can get them back on their feet and help them with that, so they don't have to worry about those stressors. So I think we're really trying to work on some of that as well, having some other type of housing and shelter for them, as well as the transitional housing to help them, get a fresh start. And then to keep up with the counseling, because they're going to continue to have to maybe see a therapist and continue to have the opportunity to have some counseling as they work through their trauma.
Thank you for that. The counseling that they have to continually utilize, is that part of funding as well and resources? I know, like for instance, I know Haven House is, I think, free of charge from my
Right.
knowledge. So they have that available. But in terms of long term,
Right.
do they have
Yeah,
other?
and that's a great question right there. I know that they're working on trying to help them at least for the first 12 to 24 months, but then after that I'm not 100% sure. But I guess what we can hope is if we can help them with some transitional housing where they don't have to pay their rent for a couple years, if they don't have to pay for their counseling for a couple years, hopefully, Lord willing, after that 20 to 24 month period, maybe they'll have the resources to maybe do it themselves at that time. But again, a long-term plan would be beneficial as well, if it'd be something legislation could look at.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. One thing I forgot to share with y'all is that before this pandemic started, we had the opportunity, and I believe it was called the Siouxland Human Trafficking Coalition, that's in the like the Sioux City, South Sioux City, South Dakota area. And they had a young lady present, and I think she was in her maybe she was mid-20s, and she was actually a victim, and she was in the, and it was just mind-boggling to hear how this happened to her, because she was a foster care kid, and when she was in this family, that's when she was recruited to get into this. And she really didn't understand what was happening from like age 6 or 7 till about when she was 15 or 16, where she was like, this is not right, But by the time that had happened, now she's like, okay, I want to get the heck out of this. It took her probably about 4 or 5 years to get out of it and to get some help. And thank God she's doing all right now. But she's still, getting her counseling and getting her help. And she still has a lot of, trauma, like we talked about. But just to hear that experience, how this actually happened to somebody like this, and to, I'm just thankful that she is a survivor and she's doing okay. But it was just mind-boggling to hear how that happened to her.
Scott, as you know, some of our viewers are also in the counseling department to become future counselors. And I just wanted to share kind of a case that I had, which the first time I encountered sex trafficking in my private practice. It was interesting because it was kind of a classic scenario of what we might think of as a mail order bride, where somebody had met somebody through the internet, brought them to the United States, and then the individual was financially dependent on this person for their kind of survival and safety. The person who was in the relationship was also, very controlling of her ability to, communicate, and controlling about her movement and just kind of everything in her life. And that was really when I started to identify the subtlety of sex trafficking. I was very surprised how some of these things can, like you said, can be out in plain sight, right? And it was
Yes.
funny because the individual came to therapy because they were having such tremendous conflict, but ultimately the conflict was stemming from the fact that she felt trapped in this situation, couldn't return home because she didn't even have the financial resources to leave, and was really stuck. So just to keep our eye out for that subtle detection, I think is really interesting in the counseling realm.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, not only does the medical profession play a big role, but the counseling can play a huge role too. Definitely.
Were there any other questions from any of the participants, or Dr. Bond or Dr. Reed? Did you see anything in the chat?
No, there's none in the chat, and I have no further questions at this time. Scott, thank you again for this opportunity, and we look forward to having you again for the next one, and hopefully more after that. And if there's any time that you want to possibly do other presentations outside of these, I mean, please let us know. It's great
Sure.
information.
Yes, yes. We'd love to let you know. And then our outreach coordinator that's in Wayne, Nebraska, her first name is Maureen. I can have her contact you as well, because I'm sure she'd be interested in, some topics that she would love to present to you as well. So yeah, between the two of us, we'd love to do that.
Well, great. Well, we'll wrap things up and bring them to a close. And for our students who are viewing, this is your passcode that you can share with your instructor to verify that you watched the seminar. It is March Haven. So you can pass that on to your instructor when asked for that code. All right. Well, thank you again, Scott, for your time. And thank you everyone for joining us in this webinar. Hopefully we'll see everybody again on March 26th for our presentation on dating violence.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Hopefully spring will be here by then, right?
Absolutely.
Although it's pretty nice out there today, so.